I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw this, I was shocked. One, that something like this needs to exist, but two, that you managed to grow something like this. Talk to me about elevated access and the services you provide.
We're an organization of volunteer pilots that flies people to get access to abortion and gender affirming care when they can't get it in their own communities. Volunteer pilots flying people to get access to healthcare has actually been something that's going on for over 30 years. A lot of organizations that are flying people to get access to cancer treatment or to go to specialized healthcare facilities or even animal rescue and other things. And it was in learning about how so much of the anti-abortion movement, its greatest impact is on people of color and communities of color, people of low incomes and others, that it very much spoke to me as a social justice issue. And so I started doing some of the homework to figure out whether pilots might be able to help.
Okay, let's back up for 1 second because I did not know that there were organizations that did this for all kinds of things like cancer treatments.
Out
I was
there.
already feeling really bad about America's healthcare system, and you're bringing me way back down. Like the fact that this needs to exist, I think, is such a huge flaw in our system. If you're watching this on video, you probably notice that Mike here is blurred out. There's a specific reason for this. Explain that reason, Mike.
First is kind of the obvious that working in the abortion movement and even around trans rights issues right now, there's a lot of dangerous people out there that make threats and other things. And so, I do that to protect myself and especially my family. Really, almost the bigger reason is that as a white person, a man, I have a lot of privilege. So I do this partly too to make sure that we're centering the people that we're helping.
Well, Mike, it's kind of a shame that we have to blur your face. Y'all, I can confirm he's got a very nice face.
Well,
You
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
walk us through this process from getting a call, or is it a text or an email or some sort of notification that someone needs help, and then to that person actually getting the help.
We work primarily by referral. So for somebody who's an abortion seeker, that they're typically starting with, maybe asking the clinic where they've scheduled an appointment. And for a lot of people, that might be 2 or 3 states away, might be hundreds of miles away, and they'll ask that clinic for resources. And most clinics have relationships with what we call practical support organizations, and those practical support organizations will arrange travel for people, provide lodging, money for childcare, food, all those kinds of things. Because if you're somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck, living on minimum wage, any resources they might need, be able to get from where they are to where that care is. Because for many people, especially in the Southeast, in the South, as well as a lot of other parts of the country, they might have to travel a very long distance. And so if somebody doesn't have a car that can drive 5 hours, and I certainly, when I was younger, had a car I wouldn't trust to drive that far. I would have needed resources, to get somewhere, and they'll send a referral over to us if they think our volunteer pilots might be the right fit for it. We connect the passenger and the pilot together so they can figure out what time they're going to meet, where they're going to meet at the airport, because where you fly for this is not the same place you would go to for airlines, and figure out how they're going to recognize each other, because obviously they're going to be strangers when they meet for the first time.
Do the patients themselves pay for this, or does the organizations help them? How do they get that kind of money?
This is all paid for by the pilots. So the pilots pay for the flight costs, pays for the fuel, the time on the aircraft, any other expenses that might be involved. And our pilots, much like me, have this resource and skill that they want to use to help people, and so that's what they're doing. We are working on a program to be able to reimburse them for fuel, but it requires an approval process from the FAA. And as you can imagine, a big federal bureaucracy takes time to get things done.
Let's talk about the network of pilots that you had. I was blown away at, first of all, the idea that you had this idea in the first place, but also people that are doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. How many pilots do you have?
So we have over 1,400 pilots that have said they
What?
want to be in our network. Yep.
1,400
Yeah.
pilots? That's insane. That's insane. In a good
it,
way.
it is insane in a good way, because we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary. And 2 years ago, it was myself and 2 other pilots. And I was seeing the Dobbs decision coming down the road and knew exactly what was going to happen. And I was like, we got to have more pilots. And so thankfully, we had some very early on viral social media that took us from 3 to then, I think by the end of May of 2022, we had like 200. By the time the Dobbs decision came out, I think we got another 500 just that weekend.
Jeez.
And it's been just constant since then. We've flown in and out of 43 states plus DC so far.
I was watching one of your videos. They pointed out something that I did not even know.
A pilot can take off from any airport, and for the most part, without even talking to air traffic control, without having to file a flight plan, without having to get any sort of governmental approval, take off in their plane and fly to any one of these thousands of airports around the country.
I'm not a pilot. I've never been on a private jet. I'm like a Spirit Airlines girly. I'm just cheap like that. That's all.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Well, I did not realize that there were so many private airports that you guys can just zip in and out of.
Yeah, yep. Just about every county in the country has an airport. I still remember one of the first flights that I did. I was with the passengers and they had called their Uber. Well, the driver called them and I'm like, that's weird. Normally Uber drivers don't call you.
Right.
And the Uber driver wouldn't believe them. They were at an airport because they had lived in that town for years and didn't know there was an airport there. So a lot of people don't even realize that there are a lot of these small airports right in their neighborhood.
Yeah, I didn't either. Going back for a second about, the reasons why we're blurring your faces and the laws here. When we talk about healthcare access and specifically abortion access, I think a lot of people miss the fact that we're not just talking about the act itself, the abortion itself, the healthcare, that medical procedure. There are so many states trying to restrict exactly what you're doing. You are helping people.
And after Texas's near total abortion ban, some local governments are enacting even stricter provisions on women seeking abortions. Lubbock County became the largest area to prohibit traveling for an abortion.
Republicans in Idaho are set to ban interstate travel for abortion.
Do you feel like your pilots, did they have a sense that they're safe in doing this? Or are you watching the news like really closely to be sure that what you're doing remains legal?
Yeah, so it's obviously a complex thing. We can be pretty confident that where we stand today, the way we do our work and the way we approach our work, that everything we're doing is legal. But our attorneys also tell us, like, because of the activism within the court system right now, it'll really depend on which judge we get in front of. So even though like a Texas law could be said to be unconstitutional, there's no faith to be had in the system because it really will come down to what judge is there. The laws don't exist yet that ban the work that we're doing. But we also do a lot of things to help protect ourselves and to protect the pilots, especially, as well as the passengers. When our partners refer a passenger to us, we don't ask them in fact, we tell them we don't want to know why they're traveling because it's not relevant. We trust them to make whatever decisions they're going to make. And then when we talk with our pilots, we don't know why the person's traveling, so we don't have that information to give them. But then we also don't tell them the name of the partner organization, so they can't infer the purpose of somebody's travel. And so all that level of plausible deniability is there. Although, again, like our lawyers tell us, like, great defense 10 years ago, who knows what happens today?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's not illegal yet. And that is just such a scary thing because I think when Dobbs fell, 2 years ago, I never thought that was going to be the end. I had a sense in being in politics for the last several years and just following this stuff so closely, understanding that it took them 50 years to get to this point. And I never believed that they were just going to be like, okay, done. The fact that these laws are ever changing and they are ever more confusing. Every state is different. It's legal for you to do this now, but I think you just said it, like, it's not illegal yet. We just don't know.
I mean, I want to just be angry and frustrated, but like, you can't sit there. I mean, that's why I started the organization, because I was tired of just being frustrated and angry at the injustice in so much of our American society. And I was like, okay, I want to do something. I figured out something to do in the current climate. I'm sure I'll figure out something to do in the future climate, whatever that looks like. I don't think it's going to be anything that would put me in jail, but who knows what laws they're going to write besides just abortion. They signaled a lot of things. I think in Clarence Thomas's opinion with the Dobbs decision was we should go after birth control. The Texas federal court said that that you can't give birth control to minors without their parents consenting.
Oh, yeah. I've been following that one really, really closely.
Texas teens now need their parents' permission to receive birth control. The ruling states that Title X program violates state law and parental rights.
Not to dive too much into a whole different situation, but what stuck out to me is that he said that he has the right to raise his daughters under God. And I just feel like that is kind of where we're going. It starts with Roe, and that the foundation of Roe and abortion care as healthcare has fallen, and they're just going to keep chipping and chipping and chipping and chipping and chipping away.
The threat to all these things, no matter what creative solutions we come at this with, still working within the legal framework that's there, is that a lot of these cases that are being put up to the courts are not based on any harms that are actually being caused to anyone, whether it be the case of this father, like you said, or the mifepristone case. It's being brought by doctors who have never provided abortion pills to anyone, but don't think anybody else should, and say they actually aren't even claiming they're being harmed.
I think what we're getting at here is that your network of 1,400 pilots, so again, are willing to offer their time and resources, is incredible. But this isn't a solution. Like, this is not a long-term solution. How does that make you feel that you know that, like, this is just a Band-Aid to this greater problem that we have?
Yeah, I used to look at practical support as being a Band-Aid. And as I was working with another colleague on some tech projects for abortion access, I made that comment, and she's like, "No, Mike, you've got it wrong. We're not trying to fix the current system. We're making a new system because because of how fundamentally broken it is, you can't fix it. What we have to do is build something new." We're starting to have conversations with midwife organizations about what it might look like to get midwives out to communities where a lot of these states and places that have abortion restrictions have lost their OBs and other folks. Like, people still need prenatal care. And so we're starting to talk about, like, what else can we do to, increase access to healthcare for people that have been affected by abortion bans and all these other things. Even though they might never seek an abortion, they still have lost access to healthcare because of abortion laws.
All right, my last question. Can we clone you? Get one of you in every single facet of America's problems here. Is that a possibility, you think?
What I will say for that is that one of the reasons that I do this work is because during Me Too, I was supporting a woman colleague of mine, mostly with moral support. And she was like, you could actually, like, speak up more publicly and do more as opposed to just stand here next to me and behind me. I'm like,
she busted your
so
balls.
she did a little bit. And so I think, to me, I take that message and I take that to all men. It's like, don't look at the issues around abortion. Don't look at the issues around trans rights. If you're white, don't look at the issues around, how Black people are treated in our country. Or if you're not an immigrant, don't ignore how immigrants are treated, because it does affect all of us, whether we're from some marginalized population or not. And so, men, white people, get off your butts, go find out what you can do, get out there and do something.
We don't even have to produce any more podcasts. We're just going to put that on a loop every single episode. Men, get off your butts. So if a pilot wants to get involved, or people want to donate time, money, where could they find Elevated Access?
So they can find our website at elevatedaccess.org. You can also find our social media accounts there. We're most active on Instagram. We don't use Twitter anymore, like a lot of people. And we have on our website, there's also, if you're not a pilot, maybe you have limited funds, you don't have much to donate, or maybe you do have funds, you want to think of other ways. There's also on our Ways to Help page, there's a flyer that you can print out to put around at airports to help us find more pilots, as well as some other ideas that you can do. So our website has a lot of information on how to get involved.
When I went to your website and I saw the first video, it was kind of like an infomercial for Elevated Access, and it had like this super upbeat music, and it was so uplifting, and it had all these great stats about all the people you're helping. I just hesitate to, like, smile at, like, a thing like this. I'm happy that you're doing this. It's just the fact that you have to do this is wild to me.
I think there will be lots of opportunities to just be negative and talk about it from a negative perspective. I even go on my own rants at times. One of the things that we didn't realize was going to be a benefit of the organization is that a lot of people tell us, like, we've given them hope that it won't be so bad, because when people see just how far somebody else is willing to go to help them, like, it brings a lot of hope and positivity into the movement. And I think that's a extra benefit of the work. And so, sure, if our video seems very upbeat and positive, it's because that's the message we want to send.
It's definitely not a knock on it.
It's easy to be downer on this stuff, because it is definitely difficult and challenging and frustrating and annoying and all the negative emotions that come with it.
It is nice to know that there are good, well-meaning people out there.
I think well-meaning is a good word. Find your local practical support organization, find your local abortion fund, find your local pride center, and go to them and say, what do you need? What can I do? We're always up for trying to find those creative solutions.